everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source Podcast. I'm your host, Jace. This is a creator-owned spotlight. We're here with a returning creator, one of my favorites, a pal of mine, Jimmy Palmiotti, here to talk about his current Kickstarter campaign for Triggergirl 6 Justice. Jimmy, thanks for taking the time, man.
My pleasure, Jace. Always great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. Great to talk. And everybody, we're recording this a few days before San Diego. Jimmy and I are going to see each other here in a few days. And I wanted to ask you, we'll get into what the book's about, but the timing
Sure.
of it, we were talking about getting ready for San Diego, how chaotic that is. Was part of the thinking, even though you're putting a little extra on your plate at a busy time, that, hey, this is a chance to all the fans at San Diego, hey, I have this campaign going. You want to check it out? That sort of thing?
Yeah, I was thinking two things, right? Like I go to San Diego and that's my world for the week, right? But I remember when I didn't go to San Diego, all I did was read news about San Diego and this is coming out and that's coming out. And I was kind of like, oh, I feel like I want to get some of the stuff there and I couldn't get it,
Yeah.
because I think you know this too. I'm a huge comic book fan.
Yeah.
So
One of
I
us.
still buy comics every week and I buy art. So missing San Diego was tough for me because I did it since 91, right? And so when Patrick and I were talking about, Patrick Wedge, who works with me, we're talking about launching Trigger Girl 6, I said, I want to do it before San Diego. And I said, for a couple of reasons. One, that week I'll be in San Diego. I'll actually be able to talk about it.
Hmm.
And then so I'm one of those consumers that if you're going to talk about a product or a new thing, I want to immediately have it.
Hmm.
Okay. Like if you're telling me about Apple's new 3D glasses, everything, I want it. I don't want to read about it and then forget about it for 8 months. I want it that day. And, I try not to, I try not to talk about the Kickstarters until a couple of days before it. Now, there's guys that argue with me. They advertise their Kickstarter for 4 months in advance. And, but for me, I feel like it already happened in a weird way. And it's like movie trailers and clips. It's like if I see enough of them, I already feel like the movie was out
Right.
in some
Yeah.
weird sense. So I figured, let me do it right before San Diego. And then during San Diego, people can actually back it during the week. And I have a Kickstarter panel. I'll be talking about it. I have a couple of panels with, we have a couples and comics panel. I will plug this thing everywhere I can. And then I'm walking around and I'll have postcards. So I'll have these postcards and it has a thing you can scan on the back, takes you right to the campaign. And I'm going to hand those out. And if people want them signed, they're really nice. We made these things up for the show. And it has some artwork of Amanda's in the back, some design artwork she did. And I just figured, well, this gives me a chance to kind of promote it other places at the con. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, comic sites don't really want to cover Kickstarters, as a rule, because we don't have money to pay for advertising.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many places I reach out to and say, hey, if you wanted me to do an interview, or I can write out an interview or get somebody to interview me, and I can give you some exclusive content for your site, and then give them pages. No one ever takes me up on it. The only one I'd say is Bleeding Cool. Rich kind of grabs it a lot. But most of them don't, because there's nothing for them in it. There's nothing in it for them. I'm sorry. And, they're too busy worrying about Marvel and DC and whatever, Superman's new pair of boots or,
Yeah.
or Spider-Man 85, where Uncle Ben, Spider Ben, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're pushing the same content over and over. And it is having the effect of people are sick of just hearing the same thing over and over. But I know for the Kickstarter, I have to go out there and promote it and wave the flag. And, this is my 21st Kickstarter. And we built up an audience by delivering a great product. So I do have an initial 500 or 600 people that the minute I have the Kickstarter up, they back it within a day or two. And then it's the 3 weeks after I have to hustle my ass off to try to get people to give it a shot, or at least buy the digital 2 books for $10, like give that a shot. Or try something new in their life, which is something that, it's not so easy to do. If you look at our summer of movies, you realize that people don't really want anything new. They want part 75 of something. And it just says a lot about what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's too bad too because I mean you know me. The reason I do what I do is because I want people reading comics, you know. And you put out great stuff. You know, you mentioned 20 one successful campaigns, and I know people reach out to you all the time, aspiring creators. Hey, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. Who should I ask for advice? Your name's always at the top of the list. But
Yeah.
the other thing, and you mentioned this, right? Like you start the day one launch, you have a group, 500-600 people that jump on right away. It's that sense of community, right? And that's another thing that I think is great. The fact that you're doing this right before San Diego, the people that aren't familiar or maybe aren't aware or haven't done one of your Kickstarters, they're going to get pulled into that sense of community. And I know you're very proud of the audience that you've built, and everybody's welcome. All fans of all genres are
Oh
welcome
yeah.
for your campaigns. Can you talk a little bit about that sense of community and the
Sure.
connections you've made?
So, I'm one of those creators that actually likes people.
Yeah.
When I see people at a con, I kind of like, I'll stop and chat and it's genuine. I actually genuinely like people. I kind of had this thing where Amanda pointed out to me once, and I always ask people what they do for a living. And I wasn't even conscious of that, but I'm always interested in what they do, and no matter what their job is. So I like people. So when I'm at the cons, I always have to remind people, if you see me come up and say hi, don't give me the, hey, I saw you at the con, but I didn't want to bother you thing. Because, I'm like, why do you think I'm there?
Right.
you know? And the signings are limited at cons, right? Because I have to sit down and then they have somebody with a line pushing you through. And Amanda and I try our best to kind of engage everybody, but when it's run by somebody else, it's a little difficult for us because they're like, okay, you have to move the line, and we're all like, oh no, wait, we're finding out about this person's thing, and or
Right.
they have a book or they want to show me their art. But with the Kickstarter, the Kickstarters are a result of me and my work being controlled by other people in a way. I love working for Marvel and DC and Image and all those guys, but at the end of the day, I'm working for somebody else on their character. And I always say, I think I paid my dues with that between Event Comics and Marvel Nights and, runs, 100+ issue runs on Harley and Jonah Hex and, doing Power Girl and Vampirella. And I don't know, I've done so much work. And I figure like, okay, and I've always kept the creator thing on the side, but Kickstarter's allowed me to branch out and reach out to new people that may say, the comics are a little too mild for me, or mainstream's got a little too bland or repetitious. And with my books, I try to be creative. I do have my characters I revisit, like Triggergirl or Painkiller Jane or something. But for the most part, I also experiment a lot on the books. And I have this very loyal audience that says, well, even if we don't like it, we're going to give it a shot. And they know that I fuss over the production of the books, and the artwork is always, the best I can get. The covers are by the best guys in the business, guys and girls in the business. Amanda's always doing some crazy stuff for the books. And then the printer is in Fort Myers, which is not too far from where I live. So I'm able to go there and look over the press and tell them make the black plate blacker. And it's the kind of control that I don't have working for somebody else.
Right.
A lot of times I get the comics and they're flimsy and they're charging a decent amount, and they're literally, they feel disposable. And I feel like what I'm doing is art in a way. And I think art has to have a little more tender love and care to it. So I'm creating books. And then there's a whole other side, right? There's a whole crew that are collectors. So they're buying the Adam Hughes cover
Right.
because it's only limited to whatever's ordered in the campaign. Last campaign, we had the Adam Hughes cover. I think it was limited. I think we sold around 300, and that book's like $1,200 now.
Yeah.
And so there is a collectability aspect, meaning we only print what the orders are. We print 10% above the orders because we have to allow for damages.
Right.
That happens a lot. And but we print 10% over. So your number's pretty accurate. So if we say we sold 300, that means it's probably around 330 to 350 copies total. We don't go more than that because they cost me a decent amount each book, and I don't have that kind of money to sit on books. And I don't have the space to sit on books. So these Kickstarters are multi-purpose. They get my original ideas out there. I connect with my audience. My audience definitely tells me what they like based on how they back the projects. And then everyone you can reach out to me in Kickstarter and ask me a question, or and if there's any issues or problems, they're usually talking to me or Patrick, and we resolve them pretty quickly. We take care of it. People move, people get their packages damaged, whatever. We always show the damaged package online because we like to give the post office a little nudge. But it is really grassroots. We're not talking. Look, I wish I had 10,000 people that back them, but I have almost 1,000 that are loyal, and they spend on an average around 40 to $60 each, and that covers everything. My artists all get paid much more than they get paid from anybody else. I make sure my guys are all taken care of, and then they get books, and again, I'm not in it to. It's not greed driven. This is quality driven, and it's I want to be able to keep telling stories and keep doing books. So it's been an interesting ride, and yeah, I do help a lot of people with their stuff. I asked them if they watch videos on it yet, and then you can hit me with questions. Don't hit me questions like, so what is Kickstarter?
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. You can ask me, wait a minute, I'm having a problem shipping this. What should I do? Well, that I can help you with, and that kind of stuff. But I get guys that ask me, hey, can you run my campaign? I'm like, no. I'm like,
yeah.
I have a life, but
exactly. Busy enough. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned coming back to some of these ideas. Triggergirl 6 is a property that was around before. Having done so many campaigns, first of all, let me ask, is there any nervousness still that you're worried about being funny, or has that gone away?
The first day I sweat it, right? Because everyone around me has more confidence than I do, right? So everyone's like, oh, you'll do great. And I'm like, I don't know, it's not Painkiller Jane, it's Triggergirl 6. A lot of people don't know what that is. And then, so what I do is I don't look at the campaign for the first 6 or 8 hours. So once I'm figuring out that page for a week or two, way before it even launches. So I'm looking over every word, making sure, okay, I said that right. And Amanda, after the campaign goes up, goes, oh, you spelled that wrong. And I'm like, but it's actually like this next week and the week after, the 2 weeks I worry about the campaign the most, because it's sort of like the horses got out of the track really fast. And now this is the part of the race in the middle of the track. And this is the part that's the hardest, because I have to convince people that wouldn't normally back one a reason to give it a try. And, thank God, people like you, there's word of mouth, that people talk it up. But even still, to pull a trigger on even a $10 digital, it's not easy to get people to back it. They'll spend $10 on, a hamburger, and they'll spend on ridiculous things. But a lot of people have had bad experiences with Kickstarter, and not from me, but from other people. So the thing I get the most is, hey, Jimmy, I love you and your work, but, this guy screwed me in a Kickstarter. I don't want to do it. And I always go, well, why don't you give me a shot?
Yeah.
And let me show you how it's really done professionally, and not take your money and run kind of thing. But it's hard. This is the time where I worry the most. Like next week, I'll have San Diego to keep me busy, and I'll be handing out 1 million of these cards. So I'm hoping, I told Patrick, I'm like, well, if maybe 1 out of every 50, I'll have at least 5 to 10 pledges by the time I'm done. If 1 out of every 50 people get the card. But you'd be surprised. I'll be handing it out, and people go, oh, I don't even know this exists.
Right.
Or I've never done a Kickstarter. Or what is Kickstarter? Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, right? Because I run into that daily. I go in the comic shop, and I'll put a postcard, and people go, oh, what is this? Like, what's Kickstarter? And I'm like, wow, okay. A lot of people don't know what that is. And so it's kind of, it's grassroots, man. Grassroots. You teach people one at a time.
Yeah.
Something like this really helps, right? Because we're talking about it, and they're like, oh, okay, let me look into that. Yeah,
and maybe we should actually get into the pitch of the book here. Again, I mentioned it's a character you've done before. Phil Noto, I think, did the art the first time around. Yeah. So you're coming back to the character. So talk a little bit about your decision to come back to the character, and kind of what the elevator pitch is for this particular series.
Sure. The book was launched I want to say maybe 2012 or 13, I think. And it was written by Justin Gray and and Amanda just ran the background. Yeah. And they were at a Starbucks and a haircut. It was written by us, drawn by Phil Noto, and it was like a 4 or 5 part story we published in a book for Image Comics called Creator Own Heroes. And the basic story was that it's a little bit in the close future, and animals are becoming extinct, and society's a mess. It's not so far from what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Um, except, long story short, the animals need to protect themselves, and mankind isn't doing the job. So the animals create these assassins called Triggergirls, and they're a mix of animal DNA and human DNA, and they send them out on missions to kind of, level out the playing field for themselves. And in the first issue, they used the DNA of the president's mother, because she was a scientist. She was the first scientist to break the communication between animals and humans, being able to create where they can understand each other. And it's a sci-fi thing about a girl that was sent to kill the president because he's messing with the environment. And by the end of that first story, he realizes what he's doing. There's this, they're introduced to the animals that can talk. And then this new story would go in a couple of years later, and we see True Girl undercover. She's breaking up an operation. These people that pretty much they get these species that are in trouble, and they're cooking them for meals, to rich people. And in this book, we open up with them going to serve up a dolphin meal. And there's only a certain amount of dolphins left on the planet. And the story continues from there, where she's going after the people that did this. But also it's a couple of years later, and she's realizing that this girl that was born out of a test tube never really had a life yet. Like she's been on a job. And the animals are realizing that, wait a minute, she hasn't had a regular time off or anything to find out who she was herself. And they're like, we made a mistake here. We created this life, and we're actually just put it to use. So the animals kind of give her a vacation. And of course, chaos happens during the vacation. So it's kind of fun. It's sci-fi. It's a little romance. It's a lot of fish out of water. And literally there's fish out of water in one part. Actually, mammal out of water. But it's a lot of fun. And I didn't want to do a book with this character again until I had a story. So I did sit on this for a couple of years. And then when I was finished with Painkiller Jane with Juan Santa Cruz, I pitched him. I said, here's the idea I got for Trigger Girl. It's going to be like 50, 60 pages, but we're going to break it up in 2 books. But would you be interested? And he never says no to me. I love that guy. And then during COVID, I was learning how to color. I wanted to take up, I was either going to learn a language or try to do some other kind of skill. And I decided, let me try to learn how to color. So I learned how to use these programs, and I did all this. I watched a million YouTubes. Oh my God, there's people that love to teach. And every day I practiced. And then this is the first 2 entire books I've colored. So if you like it, great. If you don't, you can yell at me. That's okay. But I just wanted to learn something new and try another skill out, and that YouTube is amazing, because literally anything you want to learn, somebody's going to teach you. You got a broken pipe, there's a guy to walk you right through it. Same thing with coloring. I bought an iPad and used the Procreate program. And within like a week or 2, I got the basics down. And then I realized, like, okay, now it's down to how I see things. Now it's down to skill. The initial part was down to like learn basics.
Yeah.
Now it's up to skill and seeing the world differently. And so it's been an interesting trip.
Do you feel it's helped your storytelling? Because I feel like there's so much, when it comes to color, that's the emotion of the comic, right?
Yes.
When you talk about like a horror movie or something like that, it's the soundtrack. It's the sound that kind of amps you or whatever. I feel like in comics, it's the color that can evoke, a certain emotion and pull you in. So that can help you like with the narrative, right? With your actual storytelling, making sure the beats hit and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, in my scripts, a lot of time I would put color notes in color, so my colors could find them right away.
Yeah.
But I'm very conscious of time of day in them. So if it's morning or night, it's a low light, so there's long shadows. I'm looking at everything now. I'm looking at the shadows in trees, and I'm looking at all this stuff, how light hits the wall and stuff like that. And I've always been a color editor, meaning my books would come in from colorists. I'm sure Paul, you can do a whole show with Paul Mounts talking about me giving him notes,
Yeah.
And I realized that I have a certain style I like in the coloring, and that's what's in the book. You'll see in the book. It's a little European in some spots because it's literal and it's textured. And I noticed modern superheroes like a real simple coloring, and I'm not a Scooby-Doo type guy, meaning the flat colors and stuff like that. I like texture and depth, you know? And so I learned a lot from Paul and Alex Sinclair, and I actually ran the coloring by those guys, and they had some nice FU, you got it already, you know, that kind of thing. It's very sweet of them. But it's a learning process. I'm actually coloring another book, and I colored a bunch of Amanda covers that are on DC and Marvel books. Most people don't know them because my name is in color and it's tiny because those are Amanda covers. I'm just coloring them, you know. But coloring can make or break a book, and I'm a true believer in comics are visual first. And if you don't like the way they look, I don't care how great the writing is, you're not going to want to read it. At least that's me. I can't read an ugly comic, but I can look at a terribly written comic with beautiful art all day long.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You know,
Does it exercise a different part of your brain? I mean, is it relaxing at all to do coloring?
it is. It is. It's like I can listen to music while I do it, which is really nice, like where people are singing. When I write, it's only music, soundtracks or, classical music. With the coloring, I can listen to actual music or somebody reading a book or something because I'm focusing on what I'm doing. It's just, it is another part of your brain. And I think I'm older now, and I think it's okay to kind of keep that empty chamber moving a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to learn new things, and I think, Man and I have this discussion a lot. I said the people that get older and turn back technology get older quicker.
Yeah.
They fight technology like I don't know how this thing works, and they throw it. I'm not that guy. I'm like, let me see how this works. Let me get this, or let me watch a video. Oh, okay. Let me do that. I think it has a lot to do with, keeping you young. And I'll be 62 in August.
What?
And,
I did not realize you were. I thought you were like right around 50, like my age.
oh, thank you. But yeah, no, I'm definitely young at heart. That's for sure. But my brain is in that kid mode. It's like I'm excited with every comic I do, and when they come out, it's like a big deal for me. And I've never lost that. And I think it's because, and it's funny because I see a lot of my peers and they have this attitude like, yeah, it's another book and I'm like, I can't get to that yet because I'm still in shock. I'm actually doing work in comics, and I have been doing them since 91, full time, but it's like a career where I feel like something's new all the time. And I've been lucky. I mean, I've had more hits I've had more failures than hits, but people only remember the hits.
Yeah.
And I get to revive all my failures in Kickstarters.
Yeah. And on that note, everybody, if you haven't heard me talk about 21 Down that Jimmy did with Jesus Size, my favorite thing he ever did, go check it out. If you have not, I will die on that hill. That is such a fantastic book. I love that.
Jace, I will tell you, there will be something to make you very happy soon. That's all I can say.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
I can't get the property. I can't get the property back. Right? DC owns it.
Yeah, DC owns it. Yeah.
But we've been talking, and they've been like, well, maybe we could do this thing for you. And they've been really great with me. I mean, I've gotten everything from GI Zombie, Resistance. I've gotten Twilight Experiment. They've given me all that back, which is great. And there's books of those coming soon. But 21 Down was one that they were like, well, it ties in with Wildstorm, yada, yada, yada. But we do have a 13th issue that never saw the light of day.
Yes.
And hang on 1 second. You got 1 second? I could tease it a little bit for you. Because I was just looking at it earlier today, which is just a weird circumstance of things.
Yeah, the fact that there's another issue out there that I haven't been able to see or read, that's crazy to me.
So,
yeah, see.
This is, let me.
Yeah, and Jesus is just amazing. Such a talented guy.
Yeah, he's working hard these days. Wow. Let's see. Is there focus here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just gorgeous.
I love this splash page where he's got like a person just walking.
Yeah. Yeah, you put that one up on Twitter a few times.
I did. I kind of teased the book because I thought it's never going to see the light of day. but things happen when you're nice to people.
Right. Right.
And the guys at Warner Brothers have been super cool with me. So we're working on that, and we'll have an announcement for that in a couple of months,
Cool.
hopefully.
Sounds good. Well, getting back to Trigger Girl 6, one of the other things I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned when you were talking to Juan about it, deciding to do it in 2 issues to break it up. What was the thinking behind that?
Okay, so originally I was going to do it as a one shot. That would be like 36 pages. And what happens is with these things is I write them and then I go, okay, there's something missing there. Let me add this. And then I read it again, and I'm like, okay, I can blow this part up a little bit, or wow, I didn't even think of why. And I just keep adding pages and adding pages. And before I even give it to Juan, right? And then by the time I was done, this one had there was a lot of pages. I could have done it as a trade book,
Hmm.
except that I found the Kickstarter people love comic books.
Right.
They don't necessarily care about collected editions like I thought. We've done collected editions in hardcover. Rage was a hardcover, and
Retrovirus, right? That was
a retrovirus, and Killing Time in America. But lately, a lot of guys tell me, I wouldn't mind if it's two comics, as long as it's around the same price, which it is.
Mhm.
So we break it up, and that gives us an opportunity to throw some more covers on it and kind of get creative with breaking it up. Like the Painkiller Jane one, I had a dream sequence opening the second issue, and that was done by Peach, and
Mhm.
I was able to get some work from her, and so it kind of gave us room to experiment more. And with Trigger Girl, I talked to John J. Hill, and I'm like, it has a natural break in it. I said, but I want to add pages. And he goes, story. And I said, no, I want to break it up into chapters. And then Amanda said, well, I'll do chapter breaks. I'll do the 8 or 10 chapter breaks you need. So she did these graphic chapter breaks. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Look, one day my Kickstarter will be, an omnibus with all my Kickstarters in it, maybe
Right.
10 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for now, yeah, so we did the 2 comics, which allows Amanda to do some covers, and we got these Joe Linsner covers that are just beautiful that Joe did, and then of course I asked my buddies like Ryan Sook and Adam Hughes and of course Dave Johnson. Like I'm surrounded by these really talented people that have no time to do anything, but I make them an offer they can't refuse, and I get these great covers out of them. I mean, Adam's been so damn generous, and Joe Linsner and Dave Johnson and even Ryan, all his work. He was like, let me go. I got an idea. I'm like, that's the fun part with me is like, I get to pay these guys what they're worth, not what the company decides.
Right.
And I make sure they have a stack of books so they can sell them at shows but I just split it into 2. People seem to like it. We kind of like feeling it out. And I think it does better when it's 2 books rather than doing a 48, not a 48, but a 64-page square bound.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are like, well, I want to CGC them. And if it's like a square bound thing, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, I don't care what you do after you buy them, give them a read and then light them on fire for all I care. Have fun with them.
Yeah.
They're your books. But we did it with Jane, and we just did it with this one. And so far, so good.
Yeah. I had no idea that was the reason behind it, and sitting here thinking about it. Yeah. I actually preferred single issues. I mean, that's why I still go every Wednesday.
Yeah.
I won't pick up something in hardcover. Especially if that's the only format. But yeah, if I had the choice between the 2, I'm going to go for the single issues.
Yeah, I think it's a conditioning of the way we were brought up reading comics, and I haven't had like with the Jane Kickstarter, I haven't had one complaint. I haven't had one person go, "Why isn't it 1 issue?" Everyone that got it goes, "Oh, it's cool. I got 2 of them."
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, you get a chance to have more cool covers, and that's not a bad
yeah,
thing.
and plus I get to with this. We raise a little more money. I'm able to do stretch goals. The last one had stickers. It had a print. And, we can do the stretch goals and give people more stuff. So when they open their package, it's a whole bunch of things, And I think that's the fun part of the campaigns is that it's not just that. It's like you can see all the work being put into everything. And I even pack up half of the packages myself. I usually just sign the box
Yeah.
with my initials real quick. That usually means I packed it. But I've learned how to pack like around, I don't know, 100, 120 boxes a day. I'm pretty good at that. And I have all these services offering to do it, but my thing is I can't trust them that they're going to pack it the way I like it packed.
Right. Yeah.
Like they put one piece of tape around it, but I put a piece of tape and I put tape on the sides in case it rains or in case you're in a snowy place. I'm like really protective about it. And then of course I put it in a bag and board, in a bag, inside the box, and then tape up the box. I'm a nut for having things be mint and perfect shape.
Well,
So
that goes back to you being one of us, being a collector like us, and wanting, the high quality. And also the other thing I wanted to mention is, you mentioned it's not a greed thing, and that's the other thing I love about your Kickstarters. When you hit start, when the numbers start getting up there, you're not just taking that money and just pocketing it. You turn around and put it back in, and we do get the stickers, and we do get the prints, or we get spot gloss on the cover, or just cool shit. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's funny because it hits a certain number and I'm able to, okay, spot varnish costs this much more per book. I hit that number, I can do that. I can go in now. If we get up to like 70 something, I can actually go in and the print will show me like, okay, well, these stocks are available to you. And I'm like, oh, let me see how the black printed on that. And,
Right. Yeah.
and then, like the satin finish on the covers and like, there's a lot of little things. And again, I am one of those people that when I feel a comic, I'll give you the comparison since I have one right here. And then let's grab it is the last Painkiller Jane one, Joe Quesada cover on it. It's spot varnish, but it's like you buy modern comics and the covers are the same stock as the inside of the book.
Yeah.
And my thing is the cover's supposed to be there to protect the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cardboard. It's not just a skinny piece of paper, but also I love that the color holds on it really well. Like I make sure I'm sorry, we're out of focus. This is my new camera. It's it's not
through. We can see it, how it's nice and shiny. Yeah.
There you go. If it's up on my face, it grabs it right away. There you go. And and it just feels better. And again, we don't have all this UPC. I don't put any of that stuff on the books. So they're clean. And even if we reprint this down the line, let's say Image wanted to publish the Painkiller Janes, you'll have the one that's only 400 copies.
Right.
And that one will be, thousands of copies. As a collector, I understand that because I'm like, I would want that one. I don't want the mass audience one. But we haven't really done it that much, reprinting them yet, because I feel like that's something to do maybe when I'm older, much older, and like I'm not producing as much, or I'm dead, and Patrick and those guys start collecting it. That happens. People die.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere anytime soon, Jimmy. That's all I have.
Nah, I'm not planning on it, but who knows? It's out of my control.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going skydiving. Don't worry.
All right. All right. Well, you mentioned, and we mentioned being at San Diego next week. Do you, let's let everybody know where they can find your schedule, social media wise, or
Sure.
paperfilms.com, sign up for newsletter, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So if you're on Twitter, you go to my page, you can find my schedule. It's right there. I'm going to go simply. I'm going to say that we're there Thursday to Sunday. Thursday we have 2 panels. It's one family affair about creating comics with people in your family. For me, it's me and Amanda. I'm also on a panel with Scott Snyder and his daughter, and we're just talking about doing family, comics as a family. And it's funny because that night we have a panel 5:30 to 6:30. It's happy hour with comic couples, so it's Billy Tucci and his wife. It's I think Jeff Smith. I think it's Brian Polito and Francesca, and it's going to be all of us talking about what it's like to be a couple working with each other. So that's fun. And then Friday we have a panel 11:30 celebrating Red Sonja's 50th, and I think they're going to show the movie trailer during the panel.
Oh, nice.
So that should be cool. And then at 1 o'clock we have me and Amanda and a bunch of people. Dan Panosian, no, not Dan Panosian. I'm trying to think who's on the kick. There's a lot of people on it. We're doing a Kickstarter panel about lessons about doing the Kickstarter. So again, to help people doing it. And we actually have a signing at 2:30 at the Kickstarter booth. Saturday, we have a signing with Z2 Comics to sign our Blondie book that we had come out. And then I have a signing at the Image booth Saturday from 3 to 4 about a book they're going to announce on Friday. So you'll figure out what that is. And then the last thing, Amanda has a panel Sunday at 11:30 about Gargoyles, the Disney cartoon. And basically dynamite and gargoyles, and it's a light schedule. Um, it's not that bad. It's like a bunch of panels, and that's it. I will lose my voice by San Diego. It always happens.
Yeah.
I sound like really mean and but it's by Thursday or Friday. But it's going to be fun. It's a good show. Look, I like doing all shows. We have there's so many little shows that we've been doing. Amanda and I actually the last 5 shows we did all these small shows, and it's been great. So it's been a good time.
Yeah, well, like you said, you love people, connecting with your fans. So
Yeah,
energizes you, right? It reminds you why
yeah,
you're doing what you're doing. Because it could be a
absolutely.
solitary thing. You're out there creating. You put it out in ether, what happens? What happens?
Yeah, my friends are real critical. Like my good close friends are all like picky bastards, and they harass me. But I have to connect with the people that read the material.
Yeah.
As well as I do. When you do stuff, your friends and family don't even look at it.
Yeah.
It's always complete strangers that
Yeah. That it
are
connects.
all involved in what you do, and that's just the reality of the world. It's kind of funny that way.
Yeah. Well, great chatting with you, Jimmy. Can't wait to see you and Amanda next week. Anything else you want to share with our listeners as we're winding down here?
No, just give a look to the Kickstarter page and if you have any questions, hit me up on social media. It's my name in both Instagram and Twitter, and keep watching the Comic Source because how you gonna know?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
need to know.
Appreciate it. And I will take this opportunity to remind everybody, as I always do when we do these creator-owned campaign shows. The other thing you can do, like we understand that not everybody has the means to be able to join the Kickstarter all the time. Like maybe you would love to, and you got other bills to pay and what have you. The other way, other than joining the campaign and being part of the community, the other way you can help Jimmy out is by sharing it. Because like we were saying, there's people that just don't know. They would love to back it if they knew about it. So
Yep.
sure, tell your people at your local comic shop, other, your retailer, there's retailer bundles, other people you run into, your friends, that sort of thing. Share it on social media. Let's get the word out so everybody that wants to check out Triggergirl 6 can have the opportunity. So I'll put a link to the campaign in the show notes, as well as a link to Jimmy's paperfilms.com website and his social media. So if you're going to be at San Diego, you want to know what the schedule is, just go and click there. So again, Jimmy, great to see you. Great to chat, and can't wait to see you next week.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Yep. And to you listeners, we want to thank you for joining us as always. We appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next time.